back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final. Back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and we are back here on the GSMC.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, November 8th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. I will acknowledge it. Just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. That is gsmcpodcast.net. So let's get into what we were going to discuss today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to recap last night's game between the Ravens and the Bengals. That was a great game. We'll talk about that. We'll also get into previewing a couple of games. In the second part of the show, we will preview the Sunday night matchup between the Houston Texans and the Detroit Lions. We'll get into talking about the Commanders and the Steelers in the third part of the show. And then the last two segments, we'll get into looking at the college football matchups for this weekend, take a look back at the games from last week, as well as previewing the NFL games. We'll take a look at the early slate of games and the late slate of games as well to finish off the show. So let's get into the first topic, which is discussing last night's game between the Bengals and the Ravens. So these two teams met earlier this year, and that was a great game. The Ravens winning that in overtime. And this game could have went to overtime, but it did not. And let's kind of just go through what happened. So the Bengals were up by a couple of scores in the second half. They were up 21-7. And the Bengals, they needed to win this game because, you know, they've kind of been playing catch up this whole year after getting off to a rough start. But, you know, they unfortunately ended up losing this game. And, you know, I blame the defense. The defense has not been good. The Ravens' defense, especially their pass defense, has not been good either. But the Bengals' defense all year has just not been a good unit. And, you know, this is a team that went to the Super Bowl a few years ago, and the defense was solid. But, you know, they've lost some guys in the secondary, and, you know, that did show, or that has shown over the course of this season. And it's just they're not the same unit that they once were. And that's put more pressure on this offense to score points. And the offense did score points. Joe Burrow had a great game, but they came up short. And, you know, they're 4-6 now. And, you know, they have an outside chance of making the playoffs. So, but let's kind of go through what happened. So the Bengals, they put together a very impressive drive right away to start off the game. They went 12 plays, 70 yards, a little over 5.5 minutes of time of possession, and Chase Brown from 1 yard out scored a touchdown. They did go for it on 4th and goal, but there was a defensive holding, so that put them at the 1, and they had another opportunity, and Chase Brown scored from 1 yard out. The Ravens then punted on their first drive. The Bengals did go for it. They went for it on 4th down a handful of times, and they finished on the night going for it on 4th down. If I could pull it up, they ended up finishing going for it on 4th down. They were 2 for 4 on 4th down, but questionable decisions on some of those 4th downs. But anyway, so after the Bengals turned it over on downs, the Ravens went down the field. They went 9 plays, 59 yards, and Lamar Jackson connected with Nelson Aguilar for a 6-yard touchdown. So that made it 7-7. Then there were a lot of punts in the second quarter. The Bengals did go up 14-7 at the half. This was a Tanner Hudson touchdown from 3 yards out. So that made it 14-7 Bengals. And then we went into the second half. The Ravens got the ball to start off the second half. And one play, 67 yards, Joe Burrow connects with Ja'Marr Chase, who had a big game, and we'll talk about him and look at his stats from last night. But that was his first touchdown, 1 of 3. So that made it 21-7. Then the Ravens punted, and this is kind of where the momentum of the game changed, because Chase Brown then fumbles at the Bengals 27 on 2nd and 5. And it was recovered by Roquan Smith. Marlon Humphrey forced it out. And the Ravens immediately turned that into a touchdown. Now, it was 2nd and 9 from the Bengals 11. And Lamar Jackson, is running backwards. And then he somehow, he gets towards the sideline and he somehow maneuvers his way all the way down to the 1 yard line. I don't know how the Bengals just were not able to tackle him. But he gets down to the 1. I don't know how he didn't score at that point. But then Derrick Henry, who was quiet on the day, the Bengals at least did a nice job at containing him for the most part. He scored from 1 yard out. So that made it 21-14. And yeah, like I said, that's when the momentum changed. Then the Bengals punted, and then the Ravens went 3 plays, 92 yards. And the big play was on 3rd and 2. Lamar Jackson connected with Tylan Wallace. And I don't know how the Bengals didn't push him out of bounds. And I guess, some players gave up on the play because they thought that the play was over, and he did get pushed out of bounds, but he didn't. And he took it 84 yards to the house, and that made it 21-20. And Justin Tucker missed the extra point. Then the Bengals, they went for it on 4th down, and they turned it over. And again, on 4th and 2, Joe Burrow is just throwing it deep to Jermaine Burton. You just got to get 2 yards. Why are you throwing it deep? And they did that earlier in the game, too. I don't know why they're throwing it deep. And then the Ravens immediately turned that into a touchdown. On 3rd and 9, Lamar Jackson connects with Mark Andrews for an 18-yard touchdown. They go for 2. Lamar did a read option play, and he scored. So it was 28-21. But then literally one play, Joe Burrow connects with Ja'Marr Chase for 70 yards to tie the game. So that was his second touchdown. Then, this was back and forth. Then the Ravens answered. They go 11 plays, 70 yards down the field. Lamar Jackson connects with Rashad Bateman on 3rd and goal from the 5. And that leads to the Ravens going up 35-28. And then the Bengals, they go 9 plays, 70 yards in a little over a minute. Burrow connects with Yoshi Voss on 4th and 10. Now they reviewed it, and it was kind of similar to Dez Bryant, where he took a couple steps and then fell to the ground. And the ball kind of moves around, but it was ruled a catch, and the drive continued. You had a face mask penalty, and then a roughing the pass. Well, so you had a face mask penalty on the Ravens. Then after that, Burrow connected with Ja'Marr Chase for 21 yards, and then there was a roughing the passer penalty on that. So that brought the Bengals all the way down to the Ravens 12. Then there was an offsides, and then on 3rd and 3, Burrow connects with Ja'Marr Chase for his 3rd touchdown. Now, the Bengals went for it. They went for the 2-point conversion. And at first, who I was watching it with, we thought, oh, are they just trying to get them to jump so it gets them closer? And then they actually did end up going for it. And Burrow tried hitting Tanner Hudson, but it ended up being incomplete. And at the end, you see Mike Gesicki go over to the ref because he was looking for calls all night. But that one, maybe they missed. But I don't know why you're not going to Ja'Marr Chase in that situation. And, it's kind of tough because my instinct was, well, I'd kick the extra point to go to overtime. But then you have, some of my friends were saying that was the right call because whoever got it probably wins the game. And that is true because the defenses just couldn't stop anything all night. So, but there were some penalties that were missed. There was a face mask penalty I know there was a face mask penalty on the Bengals' last drive, but there was one before that wasn't called. That was blatant. And I saw it real time. I saw the hand go into Burrow's face, and I'm like, is that a face mask? And then they showed the replay, and I'm like, yeah, that was a face mask, and they missed it. So that's, another Thursday night game where they just miss a face mask penalty. Now, the Darnold one was a little more egregious because he got thrown to the ground, and, the player on the Vikings, or the player on the Rams is putting his hands on his helmet because he's like, no, that's costly, and the refs didn't call it. So he got away with it. But that was another face mask penalty that was missed. So, but the Bengals did go down the field and score a touchdown anyways. It's just they went for 2 and didn't get it. And then they tried an onside kick. They did not get it. And the Bengals dropped to 4-6 on the season. And the Ravens improved to 7-3. Both quarterbacks were unbelievable. 8 touchdown passes between the two quarterbacks. Joe Burrow went 34-56 for 428 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. They only ran the ball for 49 yards. They're not a very good running team. And Khalil Herbert actually made his debut with the Bengals last night because Zach Moss is out. They traded for him from the Bears. And the first play, he fumbles. But they were able to, retain possession. But not a good way to start your Bengals career. With the fumble. But like I said, they got back on it. Lamar Jackson went 25 of 33 for 290 yards and 4 touchdowns. Derrick Henry only 68 yards on the ground and had a touchdown, of course. He has scored in every single game. Tylan Wallace, 3 receptions for 115 yards, 1 touchdown. Mark Andrews had 6 for 68 and a touchdown. Rashad Bateman, 6 for 54 and a touchdown. He's had a good year for them. Aguilar had a touchdown as well. 3 sacks of Burrow. But I did want to get into Ja'Marr Chase's performance because he was unbelievable last night. That's something else. That's for what we're going to do in the next part of the show. But Ja'Marr Chase, 11 receptions, 264 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He was unbelievable last night. And it was in a losing effort. And he once again said, I'm always open. They talked about the 2-point conversion, that he was open. And that's who I think Burrow should have been going to regardless. I mean, I guess maybe he just didn't have the time, and that's why he got rid of the ball. But I felt like you should have been going to Chase on that play regardless. But, again, I'm not the quarterback, so, I don't know what Burrow saw that, I guess he thought he could fit it into that window to Tanner Hudson, and it didn't happen. But Ja'Marr Chase was unbelievable last night, and he got me in half PPR. He got me 49.9 fantasy points, and my friend had Derrick Henry and Chase Brown. So, and Derrick Henry was quiet. The Bengals defense did a nice job at holding him down last night. Other than, the 1-yard touchdown, which if Lamar Jackson scores and Derrick Henry does not have a touchdown last night. But it was a very entertaining game. It was a lot of fun to watch, but it's a tough loss for the Bengals. They're 4-6 now. They could still make a run, but, their defense is not getting it done. And, they've gotten into 2 shootouts with the Ravens, and they've lost both of them. The turnovers have been costly, but they blew double-digit leads in both games. The last game, it was a 10-point game. It was a 10-point lead, and this was a 14-point lead. So, that's a problem. They should have at least won one of these games, in my opinion. They could have won both, maybe, but I think it at least should have been a split. So I did end up taking the Bengals with the 6.5 last night, and it was looking great. Then it wasn't looking good because then the Ravens scored a touchdown to take the lead, and then they went for 2, and then the Bengals weren't covering. But Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase made sure to cover. So at least I got that, but I did have the Ravens winning last night, and that they did. But let me know what you guys think about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we will preview the Sunday Night Football matchup between the Lions and the Texans. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Sunday Night Football matchup between the Detroit Lions and the Houston Texans. So the Lions are coming off of a win against the Packers, Texans coming off of a loss against the Jets. And this game, when I first saw this game on the schedule, I mean, I'm still hyped up for this game, but there's definitely some juice that has been let out because it's just, the Texans have kind of been struggling. They're a little bit shorthanded at wide receiver. No Stephon Diggs for this game. There might be no Nico Collins. He didn't practice, so I don't know what his status is, but we'll keep an eye on it, of course. But the Lions are playing really well right now. And, Texans are coming off of a loss against the Jets and C.J.Stroud. I mean, he went 11 of 30 in that game. He hasn't been great in recent weeks. Then against the Packers a few weeks ago, he went 10 of 21 for 86 yards. I mean, he hasn't. I picked him to win MVP, but doesn't look like that's going to happen. But part of that is because he's dealt with injuries. The offensive line has not done a great job at protecting him. He was under duress all night long against the Jets. So, and it's going to be the same thing here with the Lions. The Lions defense, even without Aiden Hutchinson, it's a solid unit. And they added Zadarius Smith, so they did get a pass rusher. So, and on top of that, the Lions' offense is just, it could beat you so many different ways. Jared Goff has played really well. The running game, I know I keep talking about it. They're the class of the NFC right now. And, the Texans, I mean, they have a good record right now, but this is a statement game for them. I mean, they did beat the Bills this year. But, they swept the Colts. They beat up on the Patriots. They barely got by Jacksonville. They beat Caleb Williams in his second career start. I mean, what win would you say that you were overly impressed with the Texans? Other than, I guess, the Bills. Because the Colts aren't a bad team, but, I think the Texans are better than them. The Jags, they barely got by. They could have lost to them. The Bears have a good roster, but, again, that was Caleb Williams' second career start. So, other than the Bills, I mean, they lost to the Packers. They got beat up by the Vikings. Now you're playing another NFC North team. These are some of the best teams in football, these NFC North teams, and you're 0-2 against them, and you're probably going to go, actually, no, sorry, you're 1-2 against them. But you could be 1-3 after this week. And I think that's what's going to end up happening. Partly because they're shorthanded. Joe Mixon has done a good job of running the football for them. He's been a difference maker on this team. And even without Nico Collins, Tank Dell, they still got. And, he had some big plays for them last week against the Jets. But, they're shorthanded right now. If you get Nico Collins back, that helps you out a lot. But I don't know if he's coming back this week. I would think if he's not back this week, maybe he's back next week. So I kind of want him to be back this week because I need him in one of my leagues. But, if he's not ready, then he's not ready. So I think C.J.Stroud really has to step up in this game. I mean, they are at home. The Texans are. They got to protect their home turf. The problem is it's just the Lions can beat you anywhere. They just played their first outdoor game last week. And now, once again, they're playing in another stadium where weather's not really going to be a factor. So, I mean, I like the Lions' chances to win this game. We'll take a look at the league rankings for both teams now. So, when looking at the offensive side of the ball, the Texans are 8th in passing yards per game, averaging 247.9 passing yards, and the Lions are 15th, averaging 236.5. Then, running the football, the Texans are just out of the top 10 right now, and, partly because Joe Mixon missed some time, so obviously if he was playing, it'd be a little bit higher. But the Texans are 11th, they're averaging 126.4 rushing yards per game, and the Lions are 6th in rushing, they're averaging 152.6 rushing yards per game, with that combo of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And then in terms of points per game, Lions are first. They're averaging 32.3 points per game to the Texans' 22.3, which is 17th. And then defensively, Texans' defense is actually good against the pass. They're third. They're giving up an average of 190.7, and the Lions are 28th. They're giving up an average of 265.8. So, again, if you had a healthy Nico Collins and a healthy Stephon Diggs for this game, then I'd feel a little bit different. Well, obviously you'd feel different about this game, but it looks like it might just be Tank Dell. So, and then rushing yards, the Lions are 7th against the run, giving up an average of 106.4. Texans are 12th. They're giving up an average of 114.2. And then points allowed, Lions defense is 5th. Giving up an average of 18.5, and the Texans' defense is 14th, giving up an average of 22.2. So, that's the league rankings for both sides of the ball there. Jared Goff, 1,840 passing yards, 14 touchdowns to 4 picks. C.J.Stroud, 2,139 passing yards, 11 touchdowns to 4 picks. And then, in the running game, Jahmyr Gibbs is their leading rusher. He has 656 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. And Joe Mixon, despite missing a lot of time, he has 609 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. So I think the Texans are going to lean on him in this game. I think even with the Lions being a good, run defense, Joe Mixon is still going to, I think, have a decent game. But, the Texans, they got to get back on the right track here. And, I think they're okay because of the division that they play in. They're 6-3. The Colts are 4-5, and then you got the Titans and the Jags who just got no chance of, catching up to them. But I want to see. This is, the concerns I had with them last year too, in a way. I still think this is a good team, and I think back to one of the conversations I was having with one of my friends. They said that C.J.Stroud was going to have a sophomore slump, and he kind of is, but part of that is due to things that are out of his control, and that's injuries and not getting the protection that, he should be getting, because he got knocked around in the Jets game, and I think it looked like at one point Davis Mills was going to come into the game. So Texans, like I said, Texans got to do a better job at protecting him, and again, you hope that maybe Nico Collins plays, but right now it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and I don't know if there's any update. I'm just going to do a little quick check. Yeah, he didn't practice yesterday either. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He didn't practice on Thursday. Yesterday. So, I don't know. I don't know. But I got the Lions winning this game. The Texans are a 3-point underdog. I think the Lions win, especially with the Texans shorthanded. If Nico Collins doesn't play, then it's just going to be Tank Dell once again. So, I like the Lions to win this game. I'm going to say, let me see if the line changed at all. Yeah, it's still 3.5. I like the Lions to win. I'm going to say they win 27-17. I'm going to say that's what the final score is. Now, if the Texans somehow pulled off the upset, would I be surprised? Maybe a little bit. It's just because the Lions have been rolling. And, at some point they are due for a loss. But I think if you had a healthy Texans squad with their full array of weapons and, C.J.Stroud's getting good protection, then, like I said, we would feel differently about this game. But I just think that, with them being shorthanded and the Lions are just playing as good as they are, it's not a good matchup for the Texans. So I am going to take the Lions to win, keep rolling. But again, if the Texans lose, it's not the worst thing in the world because I think this division is still theirs. But then again, last year, I thought the Jaguars had the division locked up, and then they didn't. And the Texans came back on them and won the division. So we'll see, but it should be a good game. I actually will be at a wedding on Sunday, another wedding. So I'm not really going to be super locked into all the games, but, I'll be keeping up with it. But we'll see what happens. So let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. Who do you think wins? Let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast that you want to see me acknowledge. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. That is GSMCpodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about one of the other sneaky good games for this weekend, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Washington Commanders. Yeah, that's right. That you thought at the beginning of the year that wasn't really going to be a game to circle, but that's one of the big matchups this weekend. You got two good teams going at it, two first place teams going at it. So we will get into that when we come back from our next break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to get into the Steelers-Commanders game now. One of the biggest games of the weekend. Both teams in first place. The Steelers are coming off of a bye. They did beat the Giants the week before that. So, yeah, I mean, who would have thought this game was going to be worth noting when we started the season here? But this is a big game. Commanders, they just continue to roll. They don't lose anymore. When was their last loss? They lost to it was to the Ravens. Yeah, their only losses are to the Ravens and then the Buccaneers at the beginning of the season, and they only lost to the Ravens by 7 points. This is going to be a tough game for both teams. I'm curious to see how it does go. The Steelers, like I said, they're in first place as well. They're 6-2. Well, right now they're tied with the Ravens, with the Ravens winning winning last night. So the Steelers got to win to maintain that half-game lead over the Ravens. And, the Steelers, of course, made the change at quarterback. They went from Justin Fields back to Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson has not played bad. He's been okay so far. And, the Steelers, they made a couple of moves at the deadline. And the Commanders also made a move at the deadline as well. But Russ so far, before I get into that, 542 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. It's not bad. But yeah, both teams made some moves. The Steelers, of course, they acquired Mike Williams from the Jets and also Preston Smith from the Packers, another edge rusher. And then the Commanders, of course, they tried to bolster their secondary, or they have bolstered their secondary by acquiring Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints. So they're going for it, and as they should, because this is a good team. And I said that they would win around 3 or 4 games this year. And I was wrong. And I'm going to continue to say that. But I did say when it comes to the Steelers, I had them going 9-8. And that could still happen. But the Steelers have been a topic of conversation in our production meetings because there are people that thought that they were not going to finish with a very good record. Finished with 5 wins, or 5-7. But it really was 5. But anyways, and a lot of people were saying, including myself, like, no, they're going to win their typical 9 games. Because for some reason, they just always find a way. And Mike Tomlin has not had a losing season. And that's going to continue. Like, there is no way that the Steelers are going to lose every single game from here on out. They're going to go at least 9-8. They are. Now, if they went 3-6 over their last 9 games, Steeler fans would not be happy. And there are Steeler fans out there that kind of just had it with Mike Tomlin because they want to go further instead of just making the playoffs. Because the Steelers have not won a playoff game, and I always bring this up, they have not won a playoff game since the 2016-2017 season. Steeler fans want more than just that. And this is where the tough part of their schedule begins. Now, when we first looked at this schedule, we thought it was going to begin next week when they take on the Ravens. But no, it starts this week when they take on the Commanders, who are 7-2 right now. And then after that, you got the Ravens twice. You have the Browns twice in there, which I think the Steelers should be able to beat them. And you got the Bengals twice, which the Bengals defense is not good. The Steelers defense is. The Steelers should be able to at least get a split there. You take on the Eagles. You take on the Chiefs. Look, I think the Steelers are a good team. But if they, they're one of those teams, though, where, if they get into a shootout or they fall behind, are they going to be able to catch up? We saw that earlier this year against the Colts. They fell behind, and Joe Flacco took over. Now, they did, make a comeback. Justin Fields was able to get them back in the game. They did end up only losing by 3, but, they fell short. And when you're going up against the Ravens and you're going up against the Bengals, 2 elite offenses, and the Eagles have a good offense, and the Chiefs, I know have struggled, but they're the Chiefs. Are you going to be able to hang with those teams? But they have a championship caliber defense. So that will keep them in the game. I mean, the only 2 games that they've lost, they were both by 3 points. And one of the games they definitely should have won, and that was against the Cowboys. They should have beaten the Cowboys. I don't know how they lost to them. So they'd be looking at 7-1 right now. But I think I talked about this earlier in the season. I said take advantage of some of the games that you have on this schedule. And they did. They went 6-2. That's great. I think that's what I had them doing. 6-2, 5-3. Because I had 6 wins. I think 5 or 6 wins once they got to the tough part of their schedule. But I think I also counted the Commanders as, being an easy win because I didn't expect them to be this good. This is going to be a tough game. It's on the road. Commanders are a good team. So kind of looking at the league rankings for these two teams. But first, actually, so the Steelers opened up as 1-point favorites. Now they're 2.5-point underdogs. That's interesting. But, yeah, to go through the league rankings, so the Commanders are 13th in passing yards per game. The Steelers are 25th. Rushing yards per game, both teams are top 10. Steelers are 8th. Commanders are 3rd. And then points per game, the Commanders are 3rd and the Steelers are 13th. Then defensively, the Commanders are 5th against the pass, giving up 199 passing yards per game on average. And the Steelers are 22nd. And they're kind of going to have their hands full with Jaden Daniels airing it out to Terry McLaurin, who's had a great season for them. Happy that, as a Giant fan, I am happy that he has a quarterback now. Because, again, I brought this up, the quote that he had from last year when he was just saying, I've been running a lot of cardio. Now it seems like he has the quarterback. And then against the run, the Steelers actually are 4th against the run, and the Commanders are 29th. So, the Steelers are not like a great, well, no, they're top 10. The Steelers, I know Najee Harris had a good year. Jaylen Warren was a little bit banged up, but he seems like he's healthy. The Steelers could take advantage of that. So that's something to keep. That's something to keep an eye on. Is the Steelers' rushing offense against the Commanders' rushing defense? Because if the Steelers can control the game by running the football, they got a good shot to win this game. And then points allowed, the Steelers' defense is 2nd, and the Commanders' defense is 11th. So the Commanders' defense has improved this year. It definitely has. That was one of the reasons why I just thought they were not going to be a good team, is because of their defense. I thought their defense was going to give up a ton of points, and I never said that Jaden Daniels was going to be bad. I just thought like their offense is going to have to try to put up as many points as they can because their defense is just not going to be able to get stops, and their defense has. Their defense has played better than I thought it was going to. That was a big reason why I just said they're not going to finish with a good record. And I thought maybe they'd be at least another year away. But they're way ahead of schedule. As a Giant fan, a couple years ago, when they made the playoffs, they're not doing it like this team is. The Commanders I'm looking at the graphic. This is from 2020. But I just like to have, at least something up of the two teams. And obviously, this was when they were still the Washington football team, and that's Logan Thomas, and he's not even on the team anymore. But still, it's Washington against the Steelers. That's the last time they played against each other, I believe. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. And, I'm curious to see how Mike Williams is going to do, opposite of George Pickens now. The Steelers needed another receiver, and they got it. And Russell Wilson likes to throw those moon balls, as they like to say, and Mike Williams is a guy that he will be throwing moon balls to. And Calvin Austin has made plays for them as well, not just, as a receiver, but also on special teams. The Steelers' special teams is unreal. And that could play a factor in this game. You never know. So, I don't know. Right now, it's a pick-em for me between these two teams. Commanders' rushing offense or rushing defense struggles. Steelers like to run the football. I think they can find success there. This game is definitely going to be close. The Steelers are coming off of a bye. I think the Commanders are due for a loss, so I might lean towards taking the Steelers. But it's very close. It is very close. Brian Robinson Jr. did not play last week against the Giants. I think he should play this week, but I just want to double check on that. Again, another injury. I just injuries are annoying. That's really all I could say. But so Brian Robinson, he is right now. I would say I'm guessing he's questionable. Yeah, he's questionable. So he was a limited participant in practice. So if that continues, probably going to play. So, but we'll see what happens. But I'm going to lean. I might lean towards the Steelers in this game, especially with them coming off a bye. They run the football well. Russell Wilson has been playing good. And, of course, that defense. TJ Watt is going to make a play at some point in this game. It just seems like he's always going to do something. And, a couple weeks ago against the Giants, it was the sack fumble recovery that he had. He could make a big play late in this game that decides it. So I do like the Steelers, but it's a toss-up. This game is really a toss-up, in my opinion. So I'm going to take the Steelers, though. I'm going to say they win. I'm going to say they win 24-21. I'm going to say it's a 3-point game. I'm going to say they get the win. And I said their special teams is really good. They got one of the best kickers in the league, and that's Chris Boswell. So maybe Boswell kicks a late field goal to put them ahead. Like I said, the Commanders are due for a loss, but you could also say the Steelers are due for a loss too. But I feel like the Steelers coming off of a bye, that's another week for Russell Wilson to build a rapport with his receivers. Mike Williams is now in there. Get guys a little bit healthier. So I think the Steelers come out and they get this win here. And that would get them to 7-2. And they would be in a great spot. I mean, right now they already are in a great spot, record-wise, getting into that tough part of their schedule. But, I mean, I think even if they lose here, they're getting to 9 wins. I think they're winning against the Browns at least once. They could probably do it twice, so that'd get you 8. You split with either the Ravens or the Bengals, that gets you to 9. And then maybe you get another win to 10. I mean, if you win this week, you're not going 0-8. You're not. But you do have to remember the Steelers did struggle a little bit in the later part of the season, and then they made the switch over to Mason Rudolph. And they won their final 3 games. But, look, you look at it, the Ravens' pass defense is not great. And the Steelers, continue to own the Ravens. They swept them last year. I know the last week of the season the Ravens were resting their starters. And then, Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they have a very good offense, an elite offense, but their defense is not good. And, the Browns, look, it's a divisional game. It depends on how Jameis plays. Like, are we going to get the Jameis that we saw against the Ravens, or are we going to get the Jameis that we saw against the Chargers? Like, you don't know. Or you might get a little bit of both. So, the Steelers are going to finish with a winning record this year. I have full confidence in that right now, especially if they win on Sunday. Because, like I said, they're not going to finish the year 7-10. It's not happening. And, heck, they could beat the Eagles. And, with the Chiefs at home on Christmas, you never know. The Chiefs lost on Christmas last year. So, we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about this game. Who do you have winning? Let me know in the comments. So, we are going to take our next break. Then when we come back, we'll take a look at the college football matchups for this weekend. We'll also take a look back at what happened last week. We'll look at the scores, some of the big scores. And then, we'll get into the games for this weekend and also take a look at the early slate of games in the NFL. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the college football matchups for this weekend, as well as taking a look at the early slate of games for Sunday in the NFL. So we'll actually take a look back at some of the big games in college football last weekend. So we'll start off with the game from Friday, Boise State, San Diego State. So I just wanted to bring up Aston Genti because Whoever gets him, whoever needs a running back, could get a very good one. Just not as a second overall pick, like the Giants did. 31 carries, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns in this game. I did watch it a little bit, but he wasn't really doing anything. And, of course, I think when I turned it off, that's when he went off, which, of course, that happens. But Boise State is 7-1 on the season. And, yeah, they're looking good right now. You had Miami improve to 9-0 on the season with a 53-31 win over the Duke Blue Devils. Cam Ward, he's one of the quarterbacks that we will talk about when we get to the NFL draft. He's put together a nice season, 29 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He threw for 400 yards on the dot in this game, 5 touchdowns and 1 pick. You had Ole Miss all over Arkansas, 63-31. The big game was, of course, Penn State, Ohio State. Ohio State picked up the win, 20-13. That was a tough loss for Penn State. They suffered their first loss on the season. Georgia defeating Florida, 34-20. The Illini, I think that's the second game they dropped. They lose to the Golden Gophers. They've dropped 2 straight, 1 to Oregon, now to Minnesota. So, yeah, they're 6-3 on the season now. Oregon all over Michigan, 38-17. I thought that game might be a little bit closer just because of Michigan's defense, but they're not the same. They're not the national championship team. They lost a lot of guys. Oregon improves to 9-0 on the season. So yeah, 38-17. The Hoosiers, 9-0 on the season, 47-10 over Michigan State. They play Michigan this week. And then they play Ohio State the following week. So those are 2 big games for them, and hopefully they win because they've been a big story in college football. You had Tennessee 28-18 over Kentucky, and then SMU 48-25 over Pitt. They had their first loss of the year there. So when you look at the rankings right now, so Oregon's 1, Georgia's 2, Ohio State's 3, Miami is 4, Texas is 5, Penn State is now 6, Tennessee 7, Indiana 8, BYU 9, Notre Dame 10, Alabama 11, Boise State 12, SMU 13, LSU 14. Alabama LSU is this weekend. That's a big game. So, Texas A&M at 15, Ole Miss at 16. So then for the games this weekend in Week 11, so you got Texas and Florida. I think Texas should win that. Ohio State at Purdue. Ohio State should win that. 9-0 Miami is at 5-4 Georgia Tech. Then I did bring up Michigan and Indiana. And this is a home game for Indiana, so, this will be a big win for them. And then, like I said, they play Ohio State the week after. Oregon's home against Maryland. The big game, though, is Alabama and LSU. LSU is a 3-point underdog in this game. You got Penn State and Washington. That's a home game for Penn State. That game will be on Peacock. Notre Dame playing against Florida State. Notre Dame should win that. Florida State, massive disappointment this year. But yeah, I mean the game that actually Georgia and Ole Miss could be good as well. That's at 3:30. Colorado and Texas Tech. So Colorado is ranked 20th right now. And let's see, what's their remaining schedule? So they take on Texas Tech, they take on Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State. So and right now they're tied for second. Well, at least in the conference. Overall, they're behind BYU and Iowa State. So, we'll see what happens there. Yeah, I mean, there are some good games on the slate. I mean, Alabama LSU is the big one. So, and LSU is at home, 3-point underdog. That is a tough game to pick. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens though. But yeah, like I said, some good games on the slate, and we'll see what happens this week. So then we'll take a look at the early slate of games for Sunday in the NFL. So we'll start off with the game in Germany. The Giants, the New York Football Giants against the Carolina Panthers. I don't know why they decided this would be a good game. But that's what we got. 2-7 against 2-7. Panthers are now 6.5-point underdogs. I think the line opened at like 4.5, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, it was one. Actually, the Giants were 1.5-point favorites. Now it's 6.5. I think part of that is just because the Panthers, injuries, and they traded a bunch of guys. Like they traded Deontay Johnson. They did pay Chuba Hubbard. I think they're getting Jonathan Brooks back for this game, so we'll get to see what he does in his debut. I like the Giants to win this game. I do think the Giants are the better team here. They got the better defense. I know their offense is not great, but they're going up against the Panthers' defense, which is not good. So I think the better team wins, and I think they cover the spread. I think Tyrone Tracy has a good game. I think Malik Neighbors has a good game. And I think Daniel Jones does well against a bad team. So I like the Giants to win and cover. Then we got the Patriots and the Bears. So the Bears coming off of that loss against the Cardinals. Patriots coming off of that overtime loss against the Titans. Bears are 6-point favorites. I actually do like the Bears to bounce back in this game to win and cover. Caleb Williams did good against the Jaguars and the Panthers, who aren't very good teams, and the Patriots are not a very good team. So I think this is a get-right game for them. So I like the Bears to win and cover. Then we got the Bills and the Colts. I like the Colts actually to cover. They're 4-point underdogs at home. The Bills are a different team when they're playing away. Now, then again, they did beat up on the Seahawks a couple weeks ago. But the Colts are... I don't think the Colts are a bad team. And I think, I know they didn't look good against the Vikings, but the Vikings are one of the best teams in football. Now they're back at home. They're looking to get a win. I think they will keep it competitive with the Bills. I'm going to say they pick within the number. I'm going to say they stay within the 4. But I like the Bills to win this game, though. But I think the Colts cover. Then we got the Vikings and the Jaguars. So Trevor Lawrence, it looks like he might not play in this game. And it looks like Mac Jones could get the start. So the line went from, I think, 4 to 7. I like the Vikings to win this game and cover. They are the better team. I know Sam Darnold has been a little iffy these last couple weeks, but, he bounced back against the Colts. I like the Vikings to win and cover here. See, this game is so tough in terms of just like who's going to cover. The Broncos and the Chiefs. So the Broncos are coming in at 5-4. They got beat up by the Ravens 41-10. Chiefs coming off of that overtime win over the Bucs. Right now the line is at 7.5. It opened up at 9.5. Now it's down to 7.5. I do like the Chiefs to win this game. I don't know if I'm going to take the points or not, because it just seems like the Chiefs never cover. And then the one week I didn't pick them, I picked the Saints, and the Chiefs covered. So I really don't know what to do. But I do think the Chiefs will win and keep their winning ways going. Falcons and the Saints. The Saints are getting 3.5 points. No Dennis Allen. I'm debating on whether or not I should take the points. I think the Falcons win, but can the Saints cover? Because sometimes when, you let go of a head coach, then the team plays good the following week. So maybe the Saints come out firing and, they keep it close. But, yeah, I do like the Falcons to win, but I'm debating on what I should do there as well. And then finally, because I talked about the Steelers and the Commanders already, we got the Niners and the Bucks. Christian McCaffrey is coming back for this game most likely. He's been practicing, experiencing no pain. So as long as there's no setbacks, he will be playing on Sunday for the Niners. And we're going to be getting Juwan Jennings back, and Deebo Samuel is going to be playing as well because he was banged up before the bye week. You got George Kittle. 49ers got a chance to just rest and hit the reset button. This is where they go on a run. And unfortunately, against the shorthanded Buccaneers team, and I don't like saying it just because Baker Mayfield's played so well this year, and the Bucs are playing well, and injuries just kind of have affected their season. I think the Niners win, and I think they covered 6.5. But you know what? The Bucs do put up a lot of points, so But the Niners, again, they're a good team coming off a bye week. So I got to go with the Niners here. So those are that's my breakdown for the early slate of games as well as the college football games for this weekend. I'm actually going to say that LSU wins. I'm going to pick LSU over Alabama. I'll give you a college football pick there. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about these games. What's one game that you're looking forward to the most? Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we'll take a look at the late slate of games for the NFL. There's a few of them that we'll talk about, we'll break down. And then that will take us right into the weekend. So make sure to stick around. We got the Chargers and the Titans we'll talk about. We'll talk about the Jets and the Cardinals and the Eagles and the Cowboys. Those will be the games we talk about when we come back. So for one final time today, stick around. And we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to get into talking about the last few games here for the Week 10 slate in the NFL. So we'll start off with the Titans and the Chargers. So the Titans are coming in at 2-6. They're coming off of their second victory against the Patriots last week in overtime. The Chargers are 5-3. They're coming off of a solid performance against the Browns, 27-10. And they're 5-3. And right now, the Titans are 7.5-point underdogs. I don't know. It's either going to be Will Levis, it's either going to be him or Mason Rudolph. I do like the Chargers to win this game. It is a lot of points. But I think the Chargers might start, be rounding into form right now. Justin Herbert has looked good these last few weeks. They lost that tough game to the Cardinals, so they could be 6-2 right now. But you know what? They're 5-3. They're in a good spot. They're in a wild card spot. Their defense is playing really well. They're running the football, and like I said, Justin Herbert is airing it out more, which you love to see. And we got a good Sunday Night Football matchup, even though the Bengals have a losing record between, Joe Burrow and the Bengals and Justin Herbert and the Chargers. So, looking forward to that. But got to get through this game. Like I said, I like them to win. If it's Will Levis, I actually would feel better for the Chargers to cover. But, Mason Rudolph has actually kind of moved the ball better for the Titans. So I wonder what they're going to do. I guess they might go back to Will Levis just because, they still view him as the future. But he might not be the future. He has not played great this year. So we'll see. But I do like the Chargers to win. I'm leaning towards laying the points, but it is a big number. 7.5 is a big number. So, but that's my opinion there. So I like the Chargers. So, a couple of games here. So we got the Jets and the Cardinals. Jets at 3-6. Cardinals at 5-4. Jets coming off a win against the Texans. Cardinals coming off a win against the Bears. This is a big game for the Jets. If they want to, be taken seriously, they got to continue to win these games. And they did beat the Texans, and the Texans are a good team. And the Cardinals, I mean, they're a good team right now. They're in first place in their division. You know, you got to give them credit. And right now, the Jets are favored in this game. This game is so tough to pick because, you know, like, the Jets can win this game, but they could definitely lose this game too. And it's like that on their schedule. It's like that, you know, with all the games remaining left on their schedule. Like, yeah, I could see the Jets winning this game, but they probably could lose it as well. Because the Cardinals, I think, are a bad matchup when it comes to running the football. Because the Jets are not good at stopping the run. And, you know, we saw what the Cardinals did to the Bears last week. You know, what are they going to do to the Jets this week? With James Conner and DeMarcado had that big touchdown run, and Trey Benson had a rushing touchdown. Trey McBride had a rushing touchdown. Kyler Murray didn't really have a good game, but, you know, we've seen him take off and run with it for 40 yards for a touchdown. He's done it a couple times this year. So, that's tough. Now, can the Jets move the ball against this Cardinals defense? Yes, but you got to give good protection to Aaron Rodgers, or it's going to be a long day. But what we saw last week from the Jets, we saw Garrett Wilson make a couple of nice, really good catches. Not just nice plays, but, I mean, catch of the year, the second touchdown. And the one before that was a one-handed grab, too. And we saw, you know, two old friends connect. Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams for a touchdown. You know, he had a good game as well. You would like to see the Jets run the football better with Breece Hall. Breece Hall has been good in the receiving game, but we got to see them run the football better with him and Braylon Allen. So, I mean, if they could protect Rodgers, if the defense can at least, you know, contain the run to an extent, Jets got a good chance to win this game. And I've been going back and forth with this game. I'm leaning towards taking the Jets right now, although I don't feel great about it. You know, they're still alive. Now, I don't think they're going to win the division. I think that's all but over. But, you know, if you could string some wins together, you know, you get yourself back in the conversation of a wild card. And they, you know, they're fortunate the Bengals lost last night because that's a team that they have to jump over, you know, if they want to make the wild card. So they're rooting for the Chargers to lose, and they're hoping to win. I mean, I think you know, the Jets can win out. Well, the Bills is the toughest game left on the schedule. But I do think that when you look at their schedule, the Cardinals, I think they could beat. I think they could beat the Colts. The Dolphins twice is tough. The Seahawks at home, I think they should win. The Rams is going to be a tough game. At Jacksonville, Rodgers doesn't play well in Florida for some reason. That could be tough. And they also play Miami the week before. So, you know what? Wins does build confidence. So if they can get a win here and then maybe a win next week, then, you know, you start to believe. And this is what happens when Aaron Rodgers led teams. They make late runs. I mean, 2016, run the table, and then, you know, in 2022, they did fall short. But, you know, at one point I think they were 4-7 or 4-8. And they rattled off 4 straight wins, and, you know, they fell short to the Lions. But still, you know, teams led by Aaron Rodgers go on late season runs. And could this be the case? Well, win this game, and then maybe, you know, you start to get people to believe a little bit more. But the Jets could win out, but they could also lose out. Or they could be in the middle. That's just the kind of team that they are. So, and they got a lot of talent on this team. And Rodgers, like, you know, so far, he's been a mixed bag, but, you know, 15 touchdowns to 7 picks. Not bad. It's not bad. But you're hoping that, you know, you don't get off to a sluggish start like you did against the Texans. And, you know, guys aren't, you know, letting go of the ball as they're crossing the plane. You're hoping that they can get off to a fast start and, you know, start stringing some wins together. So I'm leaning towards the Jets in this game, although I don't feel great about it. And then finally, we got the Eagles and the Cowboys. So Dak Prescott's not playing in this game, so that kind of takes out some of the juice from this matchup. Otherwise, I would have highlighted it, but, you know, it's It's Cooper Rush against Jalen Hurts. We saw that before a couple years ago in Philly. The Eagles did win that game. Now, I think Cooper Rush will do okay. But, the Eagles are the better team here. And I think the Cowboys' defense is really going to struggle at stopping the run with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley's been unbelievable this year. He's been one of the signings of the offseason between him and Derrick Henry. They're putting respect on running backs' names with the seasons that they have had. And I think Saquon's going to go off. The Cowboys are getting Micah Parsons back for this game, which should help. But Cowboys are not a good football team. The Eagles are a good football team. I don't trust them, but I will say they are a good football team. They have more talent. Now, they did almost blow that game against Jacksonville. They barely beat the Browns. But I think they should win this game and win by at least 10 points, I would say. Still got to think about it. I do think the Eagles are definitely winning this game. But, the Cowboys could backdoor. It's possible. But I just think the defense is going to be overwhelmed by the Eagles' playmakers. You had both Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown practicing. They're a little banged up. A.J. Brown, of course, left the game early against Jacksonville, but should play in this matchup. So I think this could be a long day for the Cowboys' defense. But we'll see what happens. Looking at the injury report, I can pull that up now. So Devontae Smith was limited. He's dealing with the hamstring. A.J. Brown, I guess, is off the injury report. I don't even see him. I think Dallas Goedert actually is coming back for this game as well. So that's another playmaker you get back on this offense. So, yeah, I do like the Eagles to win this game. They should cover. That's the thing. They should cover. But I don't know what happened against Jacksonville. I don't know if they took the foot off the gas. Like, what? I know I said that yesterday, but, like, what's going on? But, yeah, I'm going to take them to win. I just want to double-check just to see if Dallas Goedert is going to play. Yeah, no, he's been a full participant in practice, so he's coming back. So that's big for the Eagles, getting him back as well. So they're going to have their full array of weapons for this game. They should win, so I like them. So I like the Eagles, the Jets right now, and the Chargers. But there's some big numbers that some of these teams have to cover. So let me know what you guys think about those games. Who do you think wins each of them? Let me know in the comments. And with that, that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video. And, like I said, appreciate you guys tuning in. And if you want to listen to us, make sure to check out our podcasts wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music. And, so as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the games. And I will talk to you guys on Monday. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit.